Hello, everyone. I'm going to give people a minute to hop in here, but welcome to Friday Foundations. Today, we're going to be talking about how to use AI for productivity. So, as we get some folks in here, remember that we do have a little chat. If you would like to ask a question, you can stick your question right in the chat, and I will circle back to them toward the end, probably to answer those. All right. So let's see. We are going to talk about AI, how you can use it in your own productivity, and why it's important. So, to get started, we're going to go over the importance. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what AI is in case you have not heard about it recently, which seems unlikely, how it can be used to boost your productivity and your efficiency. What we're going to take a look at just a few tools. There are so many tools now. I'm going to pick out just my top tools, the ones that I use personally every day, and things that I think are important for our industry. And I'm going to tell you about keeping up to date and where you can do that and what we are seeing for the future of AI. So let's get started. All right. Why should you even care about AI? Well, there are a number of reasons. First of all, efficiency and automation are going to become increasingly important as we move through time here, as this gets rolled out. This is going to enable the automation of routine tasks, which it's going to free you up to focus on your more strategic and creative endeavors, which if you're in the biotech space, that is obviously key. But maybe data inputs or data transformations or things like that can be automated and free you up. We can also see it handling a lot of repetitive tasks. That's what I'm already using it for: data entry, scheduling, things like that, just to overall increase your productivity. On the data analysis and decision-making side, we are seeing AI tools being used to analyze vast amounts of data, which is very important in the life sciences space. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when I get to one of the cool tools that we are currently seeing used. But basically, we all know that the speed of data collection has really picked up over the last 20 years since deep sequencing became a thing, and we are looking at genomics, metabolomics, and all the other omicses. And so one really key thing about AI is its ability to look through huge amounts of data and find patterns, recognize patterns that maybe otherwise would go unnoticed. So we're excited about that. And so people who are armed with that technology are going to do a little bit better than folks that are not. All right, error reduction. Again, if you're dealing with large amounts of data, lots of tasks that are repetitive, there is just a human element of error. For example, I can say that today I sent out an email blast about this, and I realized after I sent it that I put that it was at 11 p.m. So I am not going to be here at 11 p.m. Maybe I will schedule this for a replay at 11 p.m. just in case anyone took that literally. Within the body of the email, I of course put AM, but I wrote that email in an email tool that doesn't yet have AI. And so I can't help but think, could I have eliminated that mistake if I had had the Gmail tool that actually does help correct that? I don't know. So that's a nice place that I can see eliminating these little human errors when we get in a hurry and we are just prone to make little mistakes. All right, the next thing is 24/7 availability. Like I said, I am not going to be on here at 11 p.m. tonight giving this talk again. So I may automate this talk to go out at 11 p.m. just in case somebody wants to see it. That said, I think it's really interesting that we now have the ability to have chatbots and things like that that are always working, that are always on, that help whatever somebody's a customer's or a client's or a coworker's schedule is, and when they are maybe most productive, that can be available to them. So that's a really neat feature that I think people will be and companies will be adopting more. Next is the personalization and user experience. This is one that we're already seeing rolled out in a lot of applications. And it is when you have a relationship with an application, it knows you, it knows your preferences, and it starts to tailor your experience so that it is uniquely your experience. And we're seeing that more and more, and it is really cool. So for instance, algorithms that might recommend relevant content. We're already seeing that in Netflix, right? Things that might prioritize tasks based on your own behavior and preferences. So let's say you like to do your deep thinking tasks in the morning because that's when you have your best period of deep thinking and creativity time. You might have a tool in the very near future that will prioritize those tasks that should be done during your creative time versus the tasks that you could do after lunch when you're maybe a little more sluggish. And we have a lot of collaboration and communication tools that are coming out. There are thousands of these tools emerging, so I'm not going to touch on all of them, but scheduling meetings, assigning tasks, translating things, all of the things that can make us more productive and more collaborative, even across the globe. And finally, well, on this list, finally, future opportunities. We are going to see AI evolving very quickly. It's already being adopted into some of the programs we know and love, and it's going to continue to offer new opportunities for productivity. So I think it's really interesting that, if you're following this, how fast this is moving. We're seeing new predictive analytics, natural language processing popping up in all of our favorite applications, and AI assisted design and ideation coming into most of the programs we're using. So while I'm going to talk about some tools that are a little bit disparate, you kind of have to go to the tool to use them, we're starting to see those tools being brought into the ecosystems we already live in. So for example, HubSpot has now released, they call it ChatSpot. So my team uses HubSpot to keep track of all kinds of information. And we can now ask HubSpot in natural language to pull reports for us or to create an email. And so that's starting to come into our life. So we're excited about the future opportunities. I'm here for it. It's fun. All right. What is AI? So in very sort of simple terms, it is the simulation of human intelligence processes, but by machines. And these processes include learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception, and language understanding. So there's some major classes. And the first is machine learning, which is where a machine can learn and improve based on its own experiences without actually being programmed to do so. And this is a key part of AI where the algorithms use data to learn and then make predictions and decisions. So that's what we're seeing as some of these programs are learning from our behaviors, from our inputs, and from other users' inputs. So deep learning is a subset of machine learning. And this is where neural networks are going to simulate human decision making in this process. This is designed to mimic the way a human brain operates, and it's used for more complex tasks like image rendering and speech recognition and sort of decision making tasks. Next, we have natural language processing, and you hear a lot about that right now with ChatGPT. This is the ability for a machine to understand and interact with a human language model. We don't always structure our sentences perfectly. We don't always use perfect grammar, punctuation, or even choose the right words. But using natural language processing and vast data sets to train it, these new machines, these new programs like ChatGPT allow it to interact with humans and understand the way we actually do speak and write in real life. And this is the hot topic right now. Okay, this is artificial general intelligence, the singularity, if you will. This is when we don't have this yet that we know of. This is when AI will actually have all of the abilities of human intelligence. It can learn, understand, adapt, implement knowledge, and it kind of reaches the level of human behavior or beyond. So this is something that people are talking about a lot as we keep iterating these natural or these neural net models. And so stay tuned for that. It's something that there's a lot of chatter about, and there's some fun podcasts and things about this. All right, moving on. AI in your work and your life. This is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today. So using generative AI is probably the best use case here, because what we're seeing is that there was a recent study by the Nielsen Group that showed that people who integrated this into their workflows saw an increase of about 66% in their performance. And that was across 3 different studies. They were using large and small companies. What they did notice was that Less skilled workers or entry level workers saw bigger gains than more skilled workers. And this is because it closed the knowledge gap more quickly. So if you are a new employee and you're able to query the internet in sort of a natural language way to learn or to fill a knowledge gap, you are going to become more productive more quickly than somebody who's more experienced and doesn't actually have that gap to fill. And maybe they're just using ChatGPT to help them write an email. So that's sort of the difference there. So I'll just say this: you do not want to be the one in your workplace that is not using these tools, because everyone else is going to suddenly look so much more productive. So don't be that person. This is your crash course in some really great tools that you can pretty much implement right away that can help you be more productive. All right, let's dive into it. I'm going to go with the juggernaut here. This is ChatGPT, right? The pros of ChatGPT is that it is free. You can go make a free account and you can use their model 3.5. There is a paid offering to be able to use GPT-4. But 3.5 is really good and it will definitely increase your productivity. And here's how. I use it for ideation. So it's like a brainstorming buddy. You can go to ChatGPT, you can ask for anything from dinner ideas to really complex brainstorming. It'll make a whole menu for you if you're having a dinner party. So that's really nice and handy. And although that's sounds like a low level task, sometimes the last thing you actually have mental energy for at the end of the day is to figure out your life and what you should plan for your shopping trip and things like that. So that's kind of nice. I also use it to ideate things for here in the collaboratory. One great use case is like, what are all the frequently asked questions on a topic? Because I'm too close to it, right? I sometimes don't even think about how I would teach somebody about interviewing and things like that. Now I have to think about that. And now I can ask what all of those common questions are, and we can make sure that we tailor our materials to answer all of those questions. So that's awesome. Ideation, same thing. We can start to dig into different topics and to generate lists around those topics. It's a fantastic tool for helping with that. I would say the first draft of any of your creative content is best served in ChatGPT. You do not want to take that first draft and just put it out to the world. It sounds really, really basic. And so I think we'll get into this a little bit more in a second here when I go through the cons. But the first draft is great. Do a little bit of thinking before you move on from there. And then organizing my thoughts. A lot of times I'll do a big brain dump on an idea, and then I'll stick that whole nonsensical half sentences, bullet points kind of brain dump into ChatGPT and say, can you summarize this for me? And it will give me a distillation of all of the things I'm thinking on that topic and bring a lot of clarity. So it's a really nice, again, it kind of goes back to the ideation, but in that case, you take all the ideas out of your head, you put it into ChatGPT, and you get it to sort of spit out an organized summary of what you're thinking. I love that. So the cons, it has something called hallucinations. You may have heard about these if you are living and breathing ChatGPT. And the reason for this is that it works, it's a natural language processor, as we talked about earlier. And it works by knowing, and I'm going to put knowing in air quotes, knowing what comes next or what should come next. And so the best example I've heard when this is described is if you hear the phrase, it's raining cats and, the next thing you might think is dogs, right? It's raining cats and frying pans doesn't make the most sense. And so what has happened is that this natural language model has ingested tons of stuff from all around the internet to try and learn what might be the most normal, natural thing to come after each word. And it actually stitches it together in that way. It's really fascinating how it builds sentences and puts them back to us. So what happens there is if it doesn't know the answer to something, and here's a prime example. If I put in a little bit of my bio sketch, but there isn't something publicly available on the internet, and I ask it a question about myself, it will make up an answer. So for example, if it didn't know where I went to school, but it knows that most people who found, it's seen that on the internet, other people who found talent acquisition companies or online education companies typically go to or have gone to XYZ school, Harvard Business School or something like that. it will spit back that I went there. And it won't sound unusual. It'll put it in a way that just seems very natural. And so I can tell you that when I asked it for my bio, just very curiously when I was first playing with it, it said I worked for one of the companies that we actually supported. And it did it in just such a natural way that if I didn't know better, I wouldn't know I didn't work there. So you have to really scrutinize what comes out of ChatGPT. That's very important. So these hallucinations, they seem really realistic, but they're not real. And so you have to know that and be very careful with how you use it before you just publish something or you send it out. The next problem is that it can be very repetitive, especially on long form drafts. So if I wanted to have create a book, let's say, there are some people who have been using ChatGPT to write books. I don't see how that's really possible because it is very repetitive. You'll see it even in the context of like 1,000 words. You'll see it repeat itself. So you have to be. It just ends up sounding very basic and very repetitive. So you have to be very careful about that. I find that it's buggy, especially during high usage times. I've been kicked off a lot before. I've lost work, that sort of thing. So just know that. And the last thing that I put here as a con is that it's not specialized in its response types. Everything kind of sounds like ChatGPT, and it uses some words kind of an unreasonable amount of times. Like it loves the word unleash. I get unleash in almost everything I put into ChatGPT or that it puts out to me. So I find myself going through, and it's fine for a first draft, but I know I'm going to change every unleash to a much better word. So just know that it is very obvious if you have not edited your ChatGPT work. All right, the next thing I want to mention is Notion, because a lot of people already use Notion or have been using Notion for years. And Notion actually integrated a really nice tool into their basic tool set that is, I think it's actually based on the OpenAI, the ChatGPT. So I'm going to go through this really quickly because a lot of the pros and cons are similar. But the pros of Notion itself is that it's a very organized tool. And so what it does is you don't have to copy your work from like ChatGPT into Notion. You can use it right inside. And since if you're a Notion user, things are organized sort of into pages, and it actually contextualizes the entire page for you. And then it will give you a summary based on that context, which is nice. So you can summarize a whole page. You can summarize a page of pages if you have links in there. And then the really cool tool that they instituted was it actually breaks down projects into tasks for you. That's a new thing. It's a little bit buggy, but if you give it a really a big project, it'll tell you how to get there. The cons are that it is a paid add-on. You have to have a paid Notion and then pay to add on the AI. So it's not cheap. I think at the time of this recording, it's like $20 as an add-on. Same hallucinations, same repetitiveness, same bugginess, and same lack of specialization. So it's pretty much ChatGPT just housed in Notion. All right, next is one that I think is really useful for scientists, and this is called Chat PDF, and this is totally free. And what it allows you to do is analyze any PDF and really quickly distill that PDF into a summary or to pick out relevant passages. So you could see that this would be very useful if you needed to get up to speed very quickly on all the publications from your new company. That would take you a really long time possibly to read if you wanted to know all the base publications and things like that. I remember giving a candidate that we hired for one of our clients a list of about 120 publications they basically wanted him to read before starting. So this would be an incredible tool to really quickly and efficiently do. Not really sure about the security on that one, so you wouldn't want to put any confidential documents into it for sure. And if you were, let's go back to that example of that employee that one of our clients hired. They might miss some context, right? If they're not reading all 120 publications and they are asking it to synthesize, they might miss a little bit of context and therefore be somewhat unprepared. So just know that as well. All right, the next tool I will mention is really neat for science. It's called NextNet, and there is a free trial. It is built for science. It actually aggregates tons of different research, and it helps people to query enormous basically all of PubMed, it seems like, all of the different publications. Now there is some paywalled stuff that probably it has not been able to put in here. So I guess I'll put my cons up here because I'm kind of talking about those. So I guess it's unclear how complete this actual database is. We don't know if every single Science, Nature, article is in there. We don't know if things from lab websites are in there. But it is aggregating data sets, it's aggregating publications, and it's supposed to allow us to query basically science as a whole. So if they accomplish that, this is going to be a really special tool. The other con I put here is that pricing is not actually clear on their website. I have no idea what this costs. It looks like it might be more useful as an institutional tool, like a company might buy it for its employees, or an institution might buy it for all the students or something like that. More to come. This is a very new tool. It's still kind of rolling out, but very, very much worth watching. The next one I will put up here is called Wisdom AI, and this is a tool that we're actually rolling out for the collaboratory. I'm really excited about it. There is a free trial. It's very limited, so you can basically play with it on the free trial, but not really use it. What you do is create a knowledge base of videos and text documents, PDFs, things like that. That's a highly curated database. And the reason this is important is because one of the major concerns with ChatGPT is that you're not controlling where it's gathering the information from. So you're not controlling the quality of the information that it's pulling on. So in this case, for Collaboratory, I can create a really nice curated database where I know I like all of the things that we're putting out there. We approve of them. We support what's being said, whether it's by us or it's curated resources that we pull in. And we can make it private access, meaning that we can really, keep this within our community, that people can add to it on a, case by case basis. So this is really nice. The cons with this one are that it is fairly expensive. And I see this as most relevant to a company. And the reason I'm putting this here is that this may be something that you actually want to roll out in your company as, an idea you bring forward and say, you know what, it'd be great to have a knowledge base for the company. And here's a tool for it. Anyone can query it. It's a natural language model. And then the really neat thing is that when it finds the answer, it gives you the answer in a concise paragraph form. And then it will actually reference the videos or PDFs or whatever so that you can go straight to them to watch more, learn more if you need to. So for a knowledge base tool, it's really neat. I could see using it as a science knowledge base for internal use at a company or within a lab. So just a neat tool to watch. It's pretty new and we're rolling it out ourselves. So probably next week you can actually test it in here. All right, basic tools. And the next one I'll mention is Fathom. So Fathom is a free plugin for Zoom. I think it works with Google Meet as well and some other apps. And it records the meeting if you want it to. So it pulls in this Fathom recorder. It shows up as like another guest in the meeting. So it's not secretive at all. Everyone knows it's being recorded. It's very clear. And it'll record, and then you can have it distill that recording into a transcript and notes of any kind. And there are some different templates for the notes. So the recruiting team at Recruitomics is using this to record and work with candidate calls, which is amazing because before we would be doing our phone screens and we would be scribbling frantically, trying to take down notes. And this allows us to really focus very deeply on the candidate conversation. And then the notes can be cleaned up really quickly after the fact. The downsides are that some people don't like to be recorded. So again, it joins as a guest. It is crystal clear that it is a recording guest. It is a note-taking app. But we do have to turn it off for some individuals who would just prefer not to be recorded, and that's fine. Then the transcripts don't do really well with scientific words. So when our recruiters are doing their phone screens and there are some complex words being thrown around, that sometimes doesn't transcribe totally accurately. The nice thing is it's easy to go back and edit those in your notes. And then people's names. Again, it doesn't know spellings of people's names. A lot of our candidates are international, and so it doesn't do a great job with names. We just have to edit after the fact. I look at that as pretty small downside. Okay, that is all the tools I'm going to run through because I want to keep this presentation short, and this just goes on and on. So I would recommend going to this site called futuretools.ai, where they have indexed a lot of different tools. It's something like 1,900 different AI tools. It goes on and on. You can see in my little video here, I'm scrolling down. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. But the nice thing is you can actually, at the top, you can filter by what you're looking for. And there's a search bar that's really good. So if you have a specific use case that you know you want to find an AI tool for, this is the place to go. The person who curates this also has a really nice YouTube channel where they go through all these tools. I mean, I think he produces 3 or 4 videos a week. It's pretty up to date, and he also looks at future trends. So this is a really great way to stay up to date with actually very little lifting. I believe that there's a newsletter as well you can subscribe to. So it's my go-to. I'm on futuretools.ai at least once a week just to see what is coming out. And then finally, I just want to jump into some of the future trends and why this is so important. So this is coming straight from McKinsey. McKinsey is actively doing research on this in many spaces, but I'm really following their scientific space right now. There are so many diseases today that we just don't have a cure for. And one reason is just the difficulty and slowness of finding and developing medicines. That pace has obviously been increasing very quickly, but right now with this AI revolution, I think we're going to see a huge increase in the speed to drug, which is amazing. So we are looking, we're going to keep on top of this. I'll release updates, but I would also recommend following McKinsey's research if you're interested in it. I think that this is going to be an emerging topic that if you are on top of, you are going to be a more valuable employee, you're going to be a more productive person, and you're going to position yourself to kind of stay on top of things and not be left behind in the AI revolution. So I think that is about all for today. I will probably do an update on this in a few months. This is moving so quickly. But if you have specific questions, you can always reach out and I'd love to answer them. I think it's a fascinating topic.